Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro continues his international tour in Azerbaijan in the framework of the peace diplomacy that the Bolivarian government is developing. The Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador announced that the national strike will continue as long as Guillermo Lasso's government does not respond to the people's demands. And Russian President Vladimir Putin predicted the end of the unipolar world at the International Economic Forum in St. Petersburg. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Venezuelan president continues his international tour in Azerbaijan in the framework of the peace diplomacy that the Bolivarian government is developing. The presidents of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, met this Friday through video conference in the context of the working visit of the South American president to the Asian nation, with the purpose of addressing the state of bilateral cooperation relations. The meeting addressed the importance of the Venezuelan president's visit to Azerbaijan as part of his regional tour, which was valued as an indicator of the high level of the political relations. During the exchange, the need to expand cooperation in the economic sphere and cooperation between business circuits was pointed out. And as part of his official visit to Azerbaijan, President Maduro honored Azerbaijani historical figures. The head of state visited the Alley of Honors to pay tribute to national leader, architect, and founder of the modern independent Azerbaijani state, Heydar Aliyev, as well as the martyrs of the homeland. President Maduro placed a wreath at the tomb of the national leader and at the Eternal Torch monument and commemorated the heroic sons of the motherland who sacrificed their lives in the struggle for the sake of the independence and territorial integrity of Azerbaijan. The president of Colombia, Iván Duque, stated that the armed forces would respect the results of the upcoming presidential elections on Sunday. The Colombian head of state ratified during an event of the armed forces what he had already expressed in a press release. With only a few days before the elections in Colombia, tensions have been increasing. The candidate of the historic pact, Gustavo Petro, once again denounced the bias and lack of transparency of the National Registrar. Meanwhile, Rodolfo Hernandez, candidate of the Anti-Corruption Rulers League party, disregarded a judge's decision to hold a national debate. The behavior of the outgoing head of state has been highly questioned by representatives of several civil society sectors for his active participation in the campaign, a behavior banned by the laws of the country. In Ecuador, demonstrations against President Guillermo Lasso's economic and social policies enter its fifth day. The president of the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities, Leonidas Issa, affirmed that the national strike will continue as long as the neoliberal policies of Lasso's government are not repealed. Likewise, in a message addressed to CONAI, other organizations and social sectors supporting the strike, Issa underlined that the actions will have a national scope, although they will be carried out from the indigenous communities' territories. In this sense, the leader of the Indigenous Confederation reaffirmed his call not to fall into provocations and to guarantee that each day of protest is peaceful. In Mexico, at least 377 people from 14 countries have been detained by the National Guard. Several children were found in the group traveling in an overcrowded truck trailer in the state of Chiapas. As part of a routine operation of the National Public Security Strategy, in conjunction with officials from the National Migration Institute, a vehicle parked on the road leading to Tuxtla Gutierrez, capital of the state of Chiapas, was intercepted. In their desperate escape from Tapachula, migrants from Bangladesh, Nepal, India, Yemen, South Africa, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, El Salvador, Venezuela, and Cuba, among other nationalities, board vehicles without any guarantee on their safety. The rescue migrants received primary care from migration authorities. Later, they were transferred to a transit shelter. The driver was handed over to ministerial authorities. In Mexico, at least 8 bodies were found inside a clandestine grave located in a hill in the east part of the city of Tijuana. The bodies were found by the search group for missing persons called Todos Somos Eric Carrillo, We Are All Are Eric Carrillo, who began the search on June 16 in the eastern part of the city of Tijuana. Following the discovery, they alerted the authorities to preserve the place. Group leader Eric Carrillo, who is himself searching for his son, Eric, missing since July 2019, said that there could be more bodies in the grave. The National Guard and the State Attorney General's office are in charge of the area. Helen Lalim, Special Representative of UN Secretary General for Haiti, warned that the country's police force needs immediate help to fight crime and violence, noting that gangs have grown so powerful they recently seized control of a local courthouse. The head of the UN Integrated Office in Haiti issued a report warning that protected insecurity and prolonged political uncertainty, combined with a dire economic situation and growing humanitarian needs, are severely hindering the country's socio-economic development, widening economic inequalities, and undermining peace-building efforts. The UN representative also said the deepening sense of insecurity, exacerbated by the seeming inability of the Haitian National Police to address the situation, is dangerously fraying the rule of law in the country.
The protracted insecurity and prolonged political uncertainty, combined with a dire economic situation and growing humanitarian needs, are severely hindering the country's socioeconomic development, widening economic inequalities, and undermining peace-building efforts. It is therefore with great urgency that I call on member states to provide greater support and to contribute to the newly established UNDP-managed basket fund dedicated to supporting the H&P and helping it address the challenges it is contending with.
We are taking a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back from the South. Russian President Vladimir Putin predicts the end of the unipolar world at the International Economic Forum in St. Petersburg. The head of the state said the ruling elites of the West live in an imaginary world and refuse to recognize global changes. President Putin also added that Western countries try to reverse the course of history by reasoning in terms of the last century. The president recalled that in recent decades, new economic centers have emerged, developed their own political systems and institutions in which they have implemented their own models of economic growth, and now they have the right to protect them and guarantee their sovereignty.
It's easy to know what they aimed at: to crush the Russian economy by breaking business chains, freezing assets, and withdrawing Western companies from our market. But it all failed.
The Russian president also said that the West failed in attempts to weaken the ruble.
Some of the experts succumbed to the pressure and in their forecast spoke of an inevitable and sharp fall of Russia's GDP, of a critical weakening of the ruble. Reality proved them wrong.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said that problems over high commodity and fuel prices are the result of a flawed bureaucratic system in Europe and the United States.
Russia has nothing to do with this. The problem with high commodities and fuel prices are the result of the systemic failures of the European and American bureaucracy. This is the root of their misguided policies. To them, our operation in the Donbass has served as a lifeline. Now they can hold us responsible for their failures. One just needs to have gone to elementary school to understand all this.
High-level delegations from Nicaragua and Russia met in St. Petersburg, where they highlighted the strategic nature of the relations of both nations and the importance of strengthening bilateral cooperation. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that President Vladimir Putin sent a fraternal greetings to Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega and Vice President Rosario Murillo. The meeting takes place within the framework of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. The economic and trade cooperation among the 5 BRICS countries has huge potential to be unleashed in its promising future of boosting global economic recovery. The sizable group of Brazil, Russia, China, and India South Africa accounts for 23% of the global economy, 18% of trade in goods, and a quarter of global foreign investment. In 2021, the gross bilateral trade volume between China and other four BRIC countries hit nearly $500 billion, achieving a nearly 40% year-on-year growth, twice the figure in 2016. Specifically, the Sino-Russian trade volume was nearly $147 billion, up by 35.8% year-on-year. And trade between China and India came to nearly $125 billion, the first time the figure had broken the mark of $100 billion.
Those figures effectively prove that the economic and trade cooperation among BRICS countries have not only boosted their respective economic and social development, but also show that BRICS as a whole serves as an important engine driving world economic recovery. The BRICS countries are all populous regional powers with different resource market conditions and very strong industrial complementarity to each other in terms of economic scale, population, and potential for development. Huge potential remains to be tapped in economic and trade cooperation among the BRICS countries.
UK Home Secretary Priti Patel has signed an order to extradite WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to the US, where he could face a sentence of up to 175 years in prison. The case passed to the Home Secretary last month after the Supreme Court ruled there were no legal questions over assurances given by US authorities over how Assange was likely to be treated. While Patel has given a green light, WikiLeaks immediately released a statement to say it would appeal against the decision. Assange faces espionage charges in the US and is wanted for trial. In 2010, Assange published military and diplomatic files exposing Pentagon atrocities in Iraq and could face up to 175 years in jail if found guilty. The Russian Ministry of Defense exposed new evidence of US involvement in Ukrainian biolabs. General Igor Kirillov, head of Russia's radioactive, chemical and biological defense troops, presented evidence of how the US Defense Department used the network of laboratories in Ukraine to create viruses that are spread by mosquitoes. In particular, he referred to dengue fever and other diseases that cause outbreaks, such as the one experienced in Cuba in 1980. According to the documents presented by the official in Cuba back in 1980, more than 340,000 people were infected and 158 died. The Russian defense minister said that episodes had been a silence and said that the whole island suffered the virus, except for Guantanamo, where the Pentagon has a military base. The general said something similar has happened in the Donbas region, and he reiterated that this type of research violates international law.
The history of the deliberate outbreak that occurred in Cuba back in the 1970s and 1980s, which means they are silencing data on the use of the Aedes mosquito as a biological weapon, which is what the US military unit in Ukraine has done. What happened in Cuba is part of a class action suit of a Cuban citizen against the US government, which was submitted for evaluation before the state adhering to the Convention on the Prohibition of Biological Weapons.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Hundreds of protesters marched through the streets of Jerusalem on Friday to protest sexual violence and the culture of blaming women and their clothing for rape and sexual harassment. The rally is an annual event organizers named Slut Walk as part of an international protest movement that began in 2011. The protesters carry signs reading, "When she says no, she means no, and a garment is not an invitation to rape." The first such protest took place in the Canadian city of Toronto and was sparked by a police officer's remarks that women could avoid being raped by not dressing like sluts. The rally soon spread around the globe as a means of demonstrating against the notion that a woman's appearance could explain or excuse rape and sexual harassment.
demonstration today is against rape culture, and we're trying to achieve that there will be no more blaming the victims and no more rape and no more violence against women.
We're trying to say that it doesn't matter what we wear and who we are. Rape, it's not something that we deserve. People in the government need to protect us. They need to be with us here, and they're not here. And this is the 10th year that we're walking here in Jerusalem, which is the main city of Israel. The government sits here, and we want to say this is our place. We want to feel safe on the streets.
The Sanaa Center for Strategic Studies, in cooperation with the Folke Bernadotte Academy, launched the Yemen International Forum 2022 in Stockholm on Friday, a platform for Yemenis to engage in depth conversation on the political situation, peace efforts, and the economy. With 200 participants, the forum brought together members of government, senior leaders from various Yemeni parties, politicians, activists, researchers, civil society leaders, diplomats, and international mediators. Sweden's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ann Linde, and the United Nations Special Envoy for Yemen, Hans Grundberg, addressed the opening session. The Yemen International Forum came during the third month of a UN-sponsored nationwide truce. Plenary sessions paved the way for expanded discussions on challenges as well as the opportunities for a political settlement, economic priorities, security sector reform, governance, and the meaningful inclusion of women in peacemaking.
You have the support of the international community. This is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Yemenis and Yemeni leaders from across the country need to decide to give peace a serious chance. They need to envisage what peace will look like and the steps, but also more importantly, the compromises that need to be taken to get there. And I have to say that I'm also surprised by the commitment that the parties have shown, despite all the challenges, to see the truce holding so far. We know that it is fragile. Yes, it's far from perfect, but it is holding.
2 militants accused of kidnapping and killing 4 foreigners in the restive southern Philippines were detained on Friday after surrendering to the military. The fugitives were members of the Fear Kidnap for Ransom group Abu Sayyaf and have been handed over to police on Jolo Island in Sulu province. Abu Sayyaf is a group of Muslim rebels, some of them allied to Islamic State group, which has carried out bombings and ransom kidnappings in the past 3 decades. The 2 suspects have been accused of the November 2016 kidnapping and subsequent murders of German sailor Jürgen Kantner and his female partner. The body of the woman was found with a gunshot wound aboard the yacht that went adrift in the Sulu Sea after kidnappers boarded it.
About the recent surrender of 2 notorious Abu Sayyaf group members in the persons of Almutir Yada and Bentatu Quirino. They were involved in the execution of kidnapped victims, such as the German kidnapped victim, Mr. Jürgen Kantner, on February 2017. He was been abducted with a $30 million ransom. They were also involved in the beheading of Canadian national. They were further involved in the kidnapping of 21 Malaysians, Westerners, and U.S. citizens in 2001.
And teleSUR expands its signal with new satellite parameters, since more than ever the world connects to us and our stories are being heard in other faraway nations. These parameters are in place since June 1st in Latin America and the Caribbean, both in English and in Spanish, and quite soon further changes will be implemented for the signals in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. This new smooth platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.